Welcome back to the Fuel Your Legacy podcast. Each week, we expose the faulty foundational mindsets of the past and rebuild a newer, stronger foundation essential in creating your meaningful legacy. We've got a lot of work to do, so let's get started. As much as you like this podcast, I'm certain that you're going to love the book that I just released on Amazon, Fuel Your Legacy, The 9 Pillars to Build a Meaningful Legacy. I wrote this to share with you the experiences that I had while I was identifying my identity, how I began to create my meaningful legacy, and how you can create yours. You're going to find this book on Kindle, Amazon, and as always on my website, samknickerbocker.com.
As we head into the next month of multiple holidays, why not gift something with a little extra heart this year? The Animal Alliance merch store is filled with adorable options like mugs and hoodies that help fund their compassionate mission to reduce pet overpopulation. Give a gift that inspires. Check out theanimalalliance.org, shared with love by the Animal Alliance. Welcome back to the Fuel Your Legacy show, and today we have another incredible guest. So excited to meet new people and learn what built them and how they built their incredible empires. Today we're going to be talking to Dida Clifton, and she has had a very exciting life. We're not going to go through all of it from my perspective. She's going to share a big part of it, but she now lives in Texas, was in Vegas for a little bit, but I think raised in Texas, and was in the military. She was a mom, a military spouse, and now she decided, well, I want to build a company. So she built a company, bookkeeping company. Yeah. Now it turned into more like the office squad. She's the CEO. She's like, man, this is fun, but how do I do it without me having to work and just get a paycheck? So then she decided to build a model that was duplicatable, turned it into a franchise. So now not just her can be a bookkeeper, but you could be a bookkeeper if you wanted to be. And she's going to teach us how. So, or have us give us the opportunity to learn how. But Dida, go ahead and tell us a little bit about how you got started. What was your early childhood, and why is that, or how did that influence who you became?
Hi, well, thank you very much for the opportunity. I'm very happy to be here, and building a legacy. That's a perfect conversation, and you're making me really think about how I got here. So I am a native Texan, born and raised in Houston, and my mom did a lot of things while she was taking care of 2 kids. Hairdresser, worked for the government, ran for office. So I think some of the crazy that I have came from them. They were married young, and they are still happily married. And I am very excited to have a normal family, I guess you would call it. So at about 18, I was the firstborn. Got a little ornery being the firstborn, a little bit spoiled perhaps. And it was suggested that when I graduated high school, I didn't want to go to college. I didn't want to do anything. It was in this little town outside of Houston. So it was strongly suggested that I join the military. Kind of needed some discipline. And I joined the Air Force. And get this, is because the uniforms were prettier than the other ones. You could get
it's a good reason.
You walk down the hallway and you go, okay, well, the Marines are working too hard and the Army just wears green. I'm going to join the Air Force. So that was the 19-year-old decision. Go figure. It turned out to be the best thing that I could have done. Boot camp was not much fun. No one likes that part. But I got assigned as a operations clerk in a F-15 fighter squadron in Alamogordo, New Mexico. So I got to work with what we call now Mavericks. Only it was Air Force, not Navy. But so I worked 6 years in F-15 operations, learned how to do procedures and systems and be disciplined and take orders and all of that fun stuff. And then I got out 6 years later, married an F-15 pilot, and became a military spouse, which I think is sometimes harder than actually being in the military. But we've been married 38 years. We have 2 beautiful children. And I was a volunteer a lot because as a military spouse, it's difficult to keep a job because you're moving every 2 to 3 years, especially in the fighter world. So I started businesses. I made gift baskets. I sold Mary Kay. I did all kinds of things trying to find the something that I wanted to contribute to the world while raising 2 children and traveling around the world in support of his career. I think we moved something like 15 times in 20 years, 23 years. Fast forward, he had stationed in Las Vegas, Nevada at Nellis Air Force Base. And the children were in school and he was at work and I needed something to do. So in 2001, I started a little bookkeeping business because I knew how to use QuickBooks from all my volunteer work. And I very quickly learned that these people, these business owners that needed a bookkeeper, needed way, way more than a bookkeeper. They need someone to answer the phones, send a fax, type a letter, pick up the package, just this whole support system. And this light bulb went off and I thought, well, that's a lot like a fighter pilot. They need a lot of support on the ground so that they can just go get in the jet, do their thing, do their mission. They don't want to answer the phone and do the paperwork and all of the other stuff that goes along with the fun job of being a fighter pilot. So the entrepreneur is the same way. They just have this mission that they want to accomplish. They want to grow their company, do their thing, answering the phone, creating the invoices, doing the estimates, paying the taxes, all of that stuff is no fun. That's not what they want to do. So they hire people to do it. And back in 2001, it was like, okay, I go get a bookkeeper, I get a receptionist, I get an answering service, and none of these things are talking to each other or working together in support of that entrepreneur. So I created the Office Squad. Started out as Dida's virtual assistants and bookkeeping, and then it grew into didava.com, and now it is the Office Squad, and we support small businesses in all realms of the back office. The main thing we do is full charge bookkeeping. We do that remotely from our offices in Las Vegas, Nevada. The Office Squad is under one roof in Vegas. We do not outsource. And the staff can be hybrid. They work in the office, and so if they need to, they can work at home. It's not a standard. I believe that people need to work together in a company to make that team work. In my case, it's a squad. So we do bookkeeping, we do answer phones, we do dispatch and scheduling for like pest control companies and HVAC companies. We do that whole back office for them. And all of that administrative stuff that's in the middle, making sure the taxes are paid, emails are cleared out. If you need to send an email or a letter, we can actually do letters still. And we have shared workspace and executive suites. So it's literally everything that you need to start and run your company in one place. And that's my legacy. Now we want to franchise it. And I want to start a little academy to help recruit people that want to do what we're doing, because the job is kind of like a skill that people think is going away. They think bookkeeping is going to be AI, but it's not. Somebody still has to tell you that your bicycle's not tax deductible or your kid's tuition is not tax deductible. Someone's got to be there to control all those details. So we want to start a little academy and help people, veterans and transitioning veterans and women, get jobs and place them wherever they want to go.
That's awesome. With your franchise, what exactly is I know this is probably a much broader question, but hopefully we can simplify it. What exactly is the franchising thing? Is it the physical location that somebody would set up a physical location and just be running the same system that you're running in Las Vegas, but running that somewhere else? But using all of that, would they also be called the Office Squad, or would they white label their stuff and just franchise out their the resources or the system?
Think of your standard restaurant, I guess, your Subway or your, Taco Bell. Those are all the same and they're all locations. So the Office Squad is a building in the neighborhood with the squad. So my goal for my franchisees is for them to build their own squad. You have a building, you have a bookkeeper in it, you have a receptionist in it. If you are a manager and you want to manage your franchise, that's great. If not, you can manage it from a distance, hire a manager. But the idea is to build small businesses in the area where you're at. My goal is to change the way that we grow small businesses in America. Right now, it's a little bit crazy. You just, say, I'm going to start a business, and you file your business license and you get your LLC, maybe, and you crack out the credit cards and you start going. And then as shit hits the fan, you try to figure out how to fix all those things while you're growing it. What if you could just go to the office squad, get a phone number, with a use of address, and some advice? You're a part of what we call our flight. And as long as you're a member of the flight, we advise you on how to grow your business. So we've got a lot of clients that'll, before they go do something, they'll give us a call and go, okay, I want to hire this, or I want to do that. Am I headed the right direction? So do it right the first time, and you grow faster, better, and smarter.
Yeah. So you're almost more of an advisory in an advisory role. Yes, you're doing the tactical office support, as you mentioned, sending letters, bookkeeping, all the boring office stuff, but you're also an advisory firm in to some degree, where you're giving, hey, this is maybe educational firm, maybe is a better word than advisory, but saying, hey, this is how things work. This would maybe be the most effective way to accomplish your objective.
Yeah. It's easier for me to say because I grew mine and I'm the advisor. And each franchisee that comes on is going to be in a different place and have to learn different things. So they will only advise as much as they want to. But it's part of a giant network, right? So as we grow the office squad nationwide, we'll have people all over that have all kinds of information, and that all works together.
So when you're, I guess that's part of what what I want to get into is, as somebody says they buy this location, how is there, as part of the franchise model, is there a clear maybe subset of companies that are already going to be great clients? Or is it like, hey, you have this model, now go find all your clients to run the model with? What's that client acquisition side of the franchise look like?
So over the past 23 years, I have learned what works and what doesn't work. And probably because I didn't listen to advice. So I would have done it a lot faster if I'd have listened to people instead of going, oh no, I know what I'm doing. I can do this by myself, which is just standard entrepreneur, right? We can do it by ourselves. We want to do it our way.
Mm-hmm.
So our business model is all about support. And because that's what we did for a living to get where we are, supporting small businesses, it's going to be the easiest thing for us to do, support that franchisee. I will show you what clients are good, what clients are bad. We say that we're picky and we're sticky. We're very picky about who we bring on as a client. And it takes about 3 months to decide if that client is going to work out or not. And it works both ways. Sometimes they don't less. But once that clicks and it works, we have clients that have stayed with us for 8, 9, 10, even 15 years. I still have one of my original clients. So if you're doing a good job and you're supporting the business owner and the franchisee, they will grow, you will grow.
Sure. So you mentioned a few different roles that somebody might have in that office, right? The receptionist, the bookkeeper. Is there a defined role as like, hey, your job is the client acquisition? Like if I'm somebody who wants to buy this franchise, but I want to do it remotely, I don't really want to build the franchise, I just want to buy into the franchise model. Is there a role outlined like, hey, you're going to hire this person and they're going to be your client acquisition specialist? Like they are going to be the person who makes sure everybody else has something to do on a daily basis, like has bookkeeping to do, has somebody to receive or be a receptionist of, here's the marketing staff. Like, are those roles all defined that you're giving them clear direction?
Roles are very defined in your squad. As a franchisee, we will need to decide what your personality is, right? So maybe you're a serial entrepreneur and all you want to do is add another business to your portfolio. You don't want to work in it. You just want it to grow. That's fine, but you're going to have the capital to hire at least one bookkeeper and one receptionist. And if you're not going to sell it, then someone needs to sell it. And we can teach that someone how to sell. We can teach that bookkeeper how to bookkeep. We can teach that receptionist how to be the receptionist. But the person that buys the franchise is going to have enough capital to be able to do all of that. And a lot of franchisees don't have that much capital to start out with. So if you are a bookkeeper and you want to grow your own squad, then you would probably be the bookkeeper. And you would hire someone, or you would go out in the morning and be the rainmaker, and you'd work all day, and then you'd be the rainmaker all night, which is what I did.
Sure. That's how it built. That's how it builds. That's what I'm trying to determine how, when somebody's walking into this, some franchises like a McDonald's, right? You go buy a franchise, one, it's $1 million. So it's not like it's a cheap franchise, but you go buy it, you build a building, McDonald's, you don't really have to like put a lot of effort into client acquisition. Somebody drives by, they see it, they know that it's basically the same everywhere. But other things that are more service-based, like if I'm a pest control franchisee, or I'm a maid service franchisee, that's a little different in that not everybody sees you out there and not everybody knows, oh, I'm going to go that. So then there has to be a different marketing plan in place for that type of franchise. And so that's what I was curious about that. Like, what client acquisition look like?
Right. If you want a business owner to trust you to hand over their baby, literally, their bookkeeping, their phones, their invoicing, and that's where you have to build trust. So my job now is to build trust in the brand. I've already built mine. Everybody so far trusts me and my squad. So how do we expand that trust nationwide so that any office squad that opens is automatically trusted because the brand is trusted? Michael is there's no one brand right now that people can go to do all of these things.
Right. Like H&R Block came out and they got kind of as the, for lack of a better word, trusted brand for quick and easy taxes.
Right.
And they did that through, I mean, franchising, but aggressive, excessive things. So similar thing, like if you're going to go do the office squad and get trusted that way, do you see yourself personally opening up multiple franchise locations as just like in Dallas, now you move down there, maybe as a proof of concept saying, look, I have one in Vegas. I'm going to open another one here to help build this brand in this location so that then I can say, hey, we need another one in the next city over. I could own that, or do you want to own that? But it's already saying, hey, it's working here in Texas as well. Of course it will, right?
We have 2 locations in Vegas, one in the north side, one in the south side. The south side opened just a couple of years ago. And my goal for 2025 and for the next 5 years is to open 2 corporate locations, so 2 that I own. And then we will accept 3 franchises. So you'll have to apply and fit the very stringent what we want in a franchisee. You have to buy the culture. We are a very different culture. We're very military oriented. My filing is different. The way we talk is different. You can hear the girls say Alpha Bravo, Charlie Delta, so we wear squad colors. The brand is very original, I believe. So going to be a franchisee has to fit into that and be willing to join the mission that I have.
Sure.
And to answer your question, we do plan on corporate-owned ones and building the trust. But that franchisee stuff have to get out in the neighborhood and build their trust.
Sure.
You start with networking, right?
Yeah. So would you say it's an ideal, I don't know if that's even the right word, but a good situation for somebody who's never done any of these things and just wants to buy into this type of environment? Or is it maybe a better fit initially for somebody who already has experience, like you mentioned, already is a bookkeeper, already is doing this, and they maybe have been working for somebody else, or they just need more support? There's tons of business owners that have been spinning their wheels on their own for 10 years. They have a clientele, but they don't really have an organized system to do it.
Yeah.
What's the value for that person to buy into a franchise? Like if I own Sam's Burger Joint And I'm like, man, this is really a lot of work. And my suppliers keep dogging me. They keep switching. I never know if I can source my stuff from the right place. I wish I had just like a one-stop shop. And then somebody comes and says, well, how about you go build a Red Robin, or if you just like your hamburgers, then go do something else. I'm like, okay, that's fine. I'd rather have a system than no system.
Yeah, that is a really great question. And I do have an answer for you.
Sweet.
So the personality of your standard bookkeeper is not very outgoing personality, right?
I would say, I don't know. So the bookkeepers I know are actually fairly, I would consider them very extroverted people more than introverted people, which is fascinating to me. I work in finance as well. I would consider myself definitely an introvert. I've learned to be executionally extroverted. Like, if I need to go network, I know how to do it. I know how to do it well. I know how to be effective, get in, get out, get done, deal done, so I can get home with my wife. That's me. But other people, I found that they are actually a little bit more like outgoing, the people that I know that are bookkeepers. So
yeah, the people that I hire that have worked out the best for bookkeeping within the squad only want to do that.
Interesting.
There's a different personality of the entrepreneur that turned out to be a bookkeeper. I didn't really start that way.
Sure.
So, but it was something that I did well. Anywho, what I want to do with the company ones is perhaps merge with a bookkeeper that wants to grow. So you've got a bookkeeping firm, you've got an accounting firm, you don't know how to scale it because it's just you right now.
Mm-hmm.
And if you become an office squad, then you have the help that you need to figure out how to scale it. And we scale it together.
Sure.
And franchisees, most of those I think are going to be, I've had a lot of corporate people that are interested, people that have been in corporate all their lives and now they want to retire and do something themselves. So you could leave your corporate world, be the salesperson, and have a bookkeeper and a receptionist opens the office for you. You're the salesperson, you get out, you network, and you grow your squad. And the squad works and pays you for your legacy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. I think that just having both paths defined. Also, I noticed, and you kind of mentioned this, that there's a lot of, it's all very military focused, languaging, branding, all of those things. Are you experiencing, as far as an interest or the conversation, do you experience that a lot more people who are coming from military are interested in working and being in that environment? Like, is that a pretty good tell of somebody who's interested?
That are interested in the franchise world, yes. There's a VetFran helps with that. I am just starting to get into it. And this may sound very strange, but when I started it, I didn't want to be a woman-owned business or a veteran-owned business. I just wanted to be a business. I didn't think I needed to label it as being anything. So I didn't use that card. I didn't say I'm a veteran. But I wanted to bid on a military contract a few years back, the contract that my husband was working for. So I went out and got all the certifications so that I could bid on that contract. And then I realized how that benefited me as being a certified veteran-owned business and a certified woman-owned business. Not just that it opened doors for me, but it gave people trust. It proved that I am what I am. And I do what I say I'm going to do. So yeah, I went out and did all of that. And then he quit the job. So been on the contract.
That's funny. But hey, that's the cool thing about having a business, though, that runs with or without you, is whether he quits the job or not, hopefully the contract is still there and you can still service it, whether you're involved in that contract or not.
Yeah, I didn't bid on the contract. I just moved on after. I wanted to help. The operations didn't seem to be running that smoothly to me, and I thought I could do a better job. I knew I could do a better job. But military contracting is a tough road to get into, and we're exploring more of it now that I have time and the bandwidth to do.
Well, I mean, anytime you can get a government contract for anything, you're probably better off in some ways and worse off in others. Like the people that I know who are in government contracting, there's a lot more red tape, and that's just kind of an annoyance aspect of it. But then there's also, you're very confident that you're going to get paid most of the time. Like And there's certain aspects that are very good, but there's other things that are maybe not so good.
Well,
Aspects.
when I started my mission, and my mission still is to help small business owners grow. Getting government contracts didn't fit my mission.
True.
So now that we're bigger and we can help more people, but the mission is still to help that business owner that's just starting out, trying to figure out how to do it right the first time.
Well, yeah, and I think that there's something to be said about if you're in the military world, military contracting world. I don't know enough about the military sideways, but if you're working with people in the military and they're kind of people that you're associating with through government contracts, then as they leave the military service and they want to start their own businesses, they already are known and familiar with you, your services, your processes, and so it'd be a way to be the first resource that they use when they're exiting. So maybe that's a better position for you rather than being in the military contracting from the serving, actually performing the services the military needs, but rather, hey, if I'm part of every exit interview that I'm helping somebody understand basic business so they have a way into business as a veteran, that might be a better.
That's where the TOS Academy is going to come in. So start the academy. People that are transitioning out of the military that want that kind of field, they can either come work with the office squad or they can open their own franchise.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. So I want to go back a little bit just because I think that how we end up in our life often is created by who we are. You mentioned both that your parents, they got married young. They're still married. You said 37 years? Is that?
I've been married 38.
Oh, you've been married 38.
I've been married, let's see, how old am I?
The golden question.
I've been married like 63 years.
63 years. They got married young. So it's something that, and both of you, I mean, I would still say that it's possible to say that you got married young too. I mean, 6 years after 18, you're only 24. Yeah, young 20s. Is your husband older or younger than you?
He's older than I am.
Older than you significantly or just like a few years?
5 years. Yeah.
5 years. Okay. So he had kind of already lived life a little bit, by the time you're 20, 28, 29, I mean, back then I feel like you were a lot more of an adult then. Now I feel like 29 is still a kid. Myself being one of those kids. So, but I am curious, like the note that I wrote down is like, how does that happen? I feel like so common in our society now, people don't see marriage as like an actual long-lasting, meaningful thing. They don't treat it that way. I can't imagine that your parents never had anything come up in their life that was hard. It doesn't have to be like hard relationship-wise, but it could be death of family members. It could just be financial struggle. It could be a lot of different things that a lot of people in the world would call it quits when things get hard. And I find that generationally, the greatest generation, baby boomer generation, and some of the Generation X, I would say like the older half of the Generation X, they don't call it quits when things get hard. They just figure out a solution and they move past it. So what do you think is different that you've seen about or experienced that previous mentality to kind of what we're seeing in the world today?
That's a very heavy question, but I think it has to do with how you're raised, right? So my parents signed up for the long run. I'm sure that they had issues. They just wanted to call it quits. But you compromise. When things get hard, you don't quit. That's how I was raised. When things get hard, you work harder. You know, that you don't just give up. And I think the generations that are coming along haven't had that. They haven't had that training. They haven't seen that in action. They've seen divorce. They've seen separation. They've seen, to be in school and you have parents that are still married. You're not from a divorced family. You don't go to dad's house on the weekend and mom's house. That's unusual. Why is it unusual?
Well, that's what I want to know. And I want to.
Anymore. They don't. Hard work is too hard. They give up.
Sometimes the best gifts are the ones that give back. The Animal Alliance merch store has perfect options like cozy hoodies and stylish t-shirts that not only look great, but also support their mission to save pets through spay and neuter programs. Invite your loved ones to join the movement with a meaningful gift. visit theanimalalliance.org. Thanks to the Animal Alliance for supporting this message.
I think that's true. I want to contrast that with something else that's another part of your story that I want to drive a nuanced conversation between these two things. So when you got out of the military, you mentioned that you tried a bunch of different things. You'd been in a lot of different industries. Clearly, you didn't stick to those. You weren't committed to those. So you ended up in bookkeeping because you transitioned. So the question is like, okay, in a marriage, we say we're in it for the long haul. That's one area of our life. We're committed. We're not changing. But then in these other areas of our life, we don't have that same commitment to being, I said I'm going to do it, so I'm going to do it. So at what point are you allowed to say, you know what, this isn't working. I'm going to try something else?
So being a military spouse and moving every couple of years is the answer to my
For you.
with that. Yes.
Okay.
So, and to try the little MLM things that I tried while I was raising children and traveling with the husband, and, I supported him. That was my job. Yeah. Support him, follow him, and raise children. The stuff I did on the side was just like a side hustle. That didn't count. So I helped him. We moved every couple of years. I supported him in all of his endeavors. And then when we got settled in Vegas and he decided to retire and stay in one place, then my bookkeeping business took off because I had the bandwidth to do it. And I never gave up. Oh, God, I wanted to give up Pleasant with a regular job, right? But if you try to, get a job, I worked at a little job in Clovis, New Mexico while we were there. I was a retail manager for a while, but you're only there 2 or 3 years. You can't build a career as a military spouse and keep moving.
Mm-hmm.
There's my excuse or my reason. And no, I didn't give up and file bankruptcy, the 3 times that I should have. And so we hit a recession in Las Vegas in 2008 through 2010. Mm-hmm. People were losing their houses. Businesses were going under. I let half of my staff go and moved into a executive suite and shared space. I call it circling the wagons and waiting for the Indians to leave.
Yep.
So I've done that 3 times. And as a wife, when I didn't need a paycheck, I could have bailed at any time. I could have just said, I'm done. I'm just going to go be a wife and get a job, but I didn't. So for 23 years, I grew this thing and he supported me. And then when he said it's time for me to retire, I've been aiming for that for the last 5 years. My goal from 2020 to 2024 was to make enough money in the office squad that he could retire. And so I've accomplished that goal. Now it's onward to the next one.
Awesome. And I love it. That's one of the things that I think in asking this question, I think more people need to ask that question. Like, what am I truly committed to? And if we go back to the relationship, do you think it is just that people are more exposed to divorce? They're more exposed to, because it's become a norm, they've seen it happen more often. They're just more predisposed to seeing that as an option. Whereas in previous generations, they didn't see it as an option.
Yeah, it's easier to do now, I think. It's easier to quit than it is to stick with it. Remember your vows, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer. It doesn't seem to matter too much anymore. And still to this day, after 38 years, there are times where I'm like, okay, worse for poorer, better for worse. I'm here. I said I would, and it's love. You have to love them. And sometimes you don't like them a whole lot, but you still love them.
Uh-huh. So
you have to stay the course. I totally forgot where I was going with that.
Hey, well, that's true in and of itself. No, I know that for me, I have had so far, we've been 9 years almost. In March will be 9 years that we've been married, and it's been wonderful. But even in 9 years, there's been hardship, and I've seen other friends and family members go through divorce. And I don't want to minimize anybody's experience in this comment. That's not the goal. Yeah. I do find that either from before these people ever got married
or during their marriage this happens, that communication, there isn't a equal amount of respect for each other in the communication style. Like one person believes that their opinion is more important or valuable than the other person, and that imbalance creates resentment. And whether that starts from day one or creeps in over time, I think a lack of respect or communication for the person that you've chosen to be with ultimately seems to lead to that decision. Also, sometimes it's a lack of respect for self, where you choose to accept a relationship even though you know it's not everything you want, but you accept it. You accept some of the abuse, you accept some of this stuff, and then it's like implied that that's okay, and that develops and becomes worse and worse over time. And again, one of the reasons I bring this up is not just about the relationship. Go for it. No, you go.
If you are in a relationship that is physically or verbally not working, that's a whole different ballgame. But if you are in love and in a relationship with someone that you want to communicate with, and maybe they're not communicating, it's just time to sit down and set some boundaries, set some rules. We have to communicate or this is not going to work. We traveled a lot. He was gone a lot. And you get past that stuff, you get back, it's almost like distance makes the heart grow fonder. And now that he's retired and we're, stuck in 1,700 square feet together all the time, it's like, need to go for a walk, But
well, that's statistically true. Like, more divorces are happening now, and divorces are being filed more by women over the age of 55 than any other specific demographic in the cohort of divorces, which is also a fascinating statistic when you think of, okay, why is this happening? There's tons of research being done about it, but it is an interesting thing to look at why that happens. And maybe it's that we're spending more time together. COVID created tons of divorces.
I have 2 daughters. The oldest has been married for 15 years or more to a military guy. And I don't see any issues and things to separate. But the youngest waited until she was 30-something. And the thing that I'm kind of hearing from her and from people of her age is, and I think it's true, you need to be independent individuals first. You need to be confident in what you're doing and where you want to go before you make that a team and create other people, right? So you're
Yeah.
getting more. Women back in the day didn't have independence. I mean, when I was a kid, when my mom was a kid, when grandma was a kid, women married a man and depended on him. And now we've got all these independent women. You need to have your life and he needs to have his life. And then you figure out how you're going to have that life together. And until you do that, stay independent.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing because I really value marriage. And also the other aspect of these conversations is that the birth rate in America is declining. It's now under 2, which is not healthy for us at any society that wants to grow or wants to even maintain. You can't have a declining birth rate. And so there's a lot of pros and cons to these like social issues that have come up. And I think we bring it back to even what you have to do in your business. You've been in business for 20 years. How many... That's not a good question. So I was going to ask you about that.
Questions.
It's just, it wouldn't lead to the right answer, but, or a productive answer. I'm sure you've recognized, and maybe you could share some insight on when maybe you accepted a client out of desperation, or you accepted a client that you thought, oh, we'll make it work anyways. There's a little things I don't like, but we'll make it work. And in the end, you should have never tried to make it work. Or maybe you've accepted a client that worked well in the beginning, and then the communication started not working, and you let that relationship continue longer than it should have without setting these boundaries, having these clear conversations. People don't like confrontation, and so they avoid having these meaningful conversations either at the beginning or as soon as they recognize they need to have it. So talk to us a little bit about that, just from a business perspective, especially in this franchise. You're bringing on these service-based clients. How crucial is that communication between the service provider, the franchisee, and the person who's receiving the bookkeeping, receiving the benefit.
Yeah. So your customers. As I mentioned earlier, we've gotten very picky, and we know what that client looks like. They're coachable, and they're willing to take advice. And if you get a business owner that's usually pretty young in their business and they haven't quite learned how to delegate, then there's always a challenge. And we have taken on clients that we want to help them. So, okay, we'll give it a chance. And then I would say 9 times out of 10, it doesn't work. It frustrates the bookkeepers, it frustrates the owners, and it's a good thing to just call it quits. If you're going to round that back to personal life, agreed. We change, we grow. You get married right out of college, you get married right out of high school, like my parents did. You grow, you get a job, you change, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. It's not for everybody. Divorce could be the answer for many. And your child rate thing. My daughter, who got married late in life, is bringing on my first grandchild in December.
Woo, woo, woo. Good job.
And then they waited to get married later in life. They both have careers. They both have money because they couldn't afford a place to live and a child until a certain point. So affordability is an issue.
Oh, absolutely.
The kids are also, I think, expecting to have things that we didn't have to have when my parents got married at 17. And they lived in an apartment over a garage, and I lived in a drawer, but that's not the way that we have kids now.
Maybe it should be. I think that all goes back to how we're raised and like what type of mentality. Do we actually believe that the mentality you kind of started with of like, hey, if things aren't working, work harder, like do more. And my wife and I, we have this conversation often because there's emotional stress that happens when you have children. We got 3 children right now. And that emotional stress is like, man, this is so hard. And why can't things, and it's like, we're complaining about why can't we get our kids to put their shoes in the right area of our house? We're complaining about why can't we get our kids to fold their clothes? Like things that you don't think about it because it's like, it is a problem to you in your life, but there's people who they don't even have shoes. They don't even have clothes. They don't even have like AC. And so they don't even have power. They don't have a Halloween costume. So the things that we're complaining about really are like super, super first world problem. And most of the society has never experienced what it would be like to live an extremely poverty or humble lifestyle. And so then when they experience these other issues, they're like, oh, this is so hard. And this has been, I will say, if there's an issue, right? It's just been a difference in perspective between my wife and I. She grew up different than I did. It's not a good thing or a bad thing, but I grew up dumpster diving for food occasionally. She grew up in a different, she was the youngest of her 6 siblings, and their family was better off by the time she grew up. Even her oldest siblings versus her, they're like, you're the spoiled little sister, so like that difference in how we were raised, the things that are like mentally or socially exhausting for me, like there's a really high bar before I get really annoyed by something. Whereas for her, it's like sometimes the littlest things, just why are we even living? It's like, wait a second. We need to build mental toughness. We need to so how do you teach that without having somebody go through it?
Oh, I think they have to go through it.
Do you want to raise yourself and your children in poverty, even though you have money?
I think you can take lessons that you've learned and bring that forward. I think my girls are level-headed in the way they are because we traveled a lot. My oldest went to 3 different kindergartens.
Okay.
So And there was no being afraid to go to school. I mean, yes, they're terrified to go to a new school, but they've done it over and over and over. So you did it last time, go make friends. You're okay. You can do it. You just have to give them the power to be confident to go do those things. My husband did an exchange tour. Sometimes the military exchanges staff members with other countries. So he went to East Germany for 2.5 years and flew the former East German airplane, the MiG-29, when the wall went down. And we lived in a little village with cobblestone streets, no McDonald's. There was like one little grocery store. And my girls both my little one went to German kindergarten, and she had to learn German, just, throw her in there, and she became a sponge and learned it all. Within a couple of weeks, she was speaking and understanding German. But we were living on what we call the economy. We were the only Americans, and we were the first Americans to be in that little village. So all these people that didn't know what a thrift shop was and didn't understand America, I got to meet and learn these things from these people, and they learned from me. We opened a thrift shop in the kindergarten because they didn't know how to raise money to get things for the kids for the school, and so we created one. But I remember we used to get a little newspaper from the southern part of Germany where the military base was. And there was a column in this newspaper where people would complain most. And there was a letter to the editor in there from this woman that was complaining that the little shop and stop store on the base didn't have a ramp for her baby stroller. That was tough, right? And I had it just about enough of what I didn't have in my little village that I wrote a letter back, and they published it as well. I was like, I have cobblestone streets. We don't have ramps anywhere. No one speaks my language. And when I go to the doctor with my children, I take a little German English dictionary, and you're complaining that you can't get your baby stroller up a ramp. Seriously? So look at what other people have and kind of,
Yeah, perspective.
Where are you? And then after that tour, we went to Clovis, New Mexico, which is a little cow town, and people were complaining that all they had was a Walmart. They didn't have a mall, but they had a Walmart. And I said, well, at least you got a Walmart. I didn't have one of those in Germany.
Yeah.
No. Bloom where you're planted was my thing. So
Yeah, well, I think that's huge, and those are some of the things that I really I value from your story and your experience. And I think that all of that, as you mentioned, it feeds into what is your brand for your franchise. What type of environment do you want to create? What type of people do you want? Because there's lots of hardship in business. There's tons of hardship, and just when it gets hard, you can't just give up. You have to be willing to fight through it. You have to be willing to stand your ground. There's one thing that I've learned in business. I've been in business for 8 years, almost 9 years. Well, yeah, about that. And sometimes you're falsely accused of stuff like, you did this. And you're like, no, I didn't. And, to protect my reputation, I don't even it's financially, it's not really wise for me to fight this necessarily, but socially or reputation wise, I have to defend myself against these crazy accusations, because it's just like, if I'm silent, that is almost an admission of. And so it's sometimes those things, you have to learn to have a backbone. You have to learn to be more resilient against the winds of change, social change. There's lots of that going on in our country. There's a lot of things going on. And how do you build a business and stay focused on what needs to be focused on and kind of move past the stuff that is small or insignificant overall?
Start by building your culture. That's the first point. Where do you want your business to be?
Yeah, I love it. And having that end in mind, having the mission in mind, right? Realizing that, hey, yeah, we could go do these other things. Maybe there would be money there, but it's not aligned with the brand and what we are actually trying to accomplish. And so sometimes you make those determinations and those decisions to stop participating or stop pursuing something that may be lucrative, but doesn't align with fulfillment, doesn't align with the legacy you want, doesn't align with the brand that you are. And you can go, this is another thing,
you can go start another brand. You can go start another business. There's no limits to how many businesses you can own in America. Like Elon Musk, he just like starts business after business after business. Seems like, okay, you can go do whatever you want. If you want another business that has a different mission and a different brand to service that objective, do it. Like the military is a great example of that, right? They have land, water, like they have all these things, but they don't just say, oh, it's all the Army. Maybe Army does encompass forces, but it's armed forces, right? They have different branches that specialize in each of those things. Do all of those military units probably have similar basic training that everybody gets and everybody needs to learn how to do certain things? Yes, but then they specialize in different types of activities to be experts in those areas. So I think that there's going to be crossover, but just because there's crossover doesn't mean you shouldn't separate and have two separate businesses to provide clarity.
Together when they need to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Because you may, especially like if you're working with a small business and you're helping them be successful, they may turn into this massive business that actually outgrows the identity of your brand. And then you say, okay, well, as much as I want to help you still, that's not who we're set up to serve. These other companies would be better to serve, or we create a company. You're already doing that with, hey, this is who we're serving, but we also need something that is a funnel into this. So we need a training program. We need to train people before flight. We need a pre-flight training, like to make sure people understand why they might need something like this. And that happens all the time as well.
Exactly.
So I love it. If somebody wanted to get more information about your franchise or just about you, where would they go to get in touch with you?
The easiest place is, of course, the World Wide Web. So theofficesquad.com is our website. There are buttons to click there to contact us, and you can email help, HELP, at theofficesquad.com, and you can reach all of us.
Okay, and is that the best, if they were interested specifically in franchising, is that the best place to reach out as well, or is that more best for resources?
There is a button on the homepage. It says franchise right up at the top right-hand corner, and you can also email franchise@theofficesquad.com.
Cool.
And it comes direct to me.
Yeah, because I know quite a few bookkeepers, and you never know who's the right person. I do know some of them hate the ambiguity of the discovery of the things they didn't know. Some of them been in business for 4 or 5 years, and then they have a lawsuit come in. They have certain things. They're like, how do you handle this? Oh my gosh. And they're calling around trying to figure it out. What if there was a system that said, this is the best practices, this is the procedures, this is how to deal with all those things?
We're happy to help them. And that's part of that company owned, growing, merging with others that want to scale and grow. That'd be awesome.
Do you do, just final question here, but do you do like fractional CFO work as well? Or is that more not really what you would consider yourself?
There's a bookkeeping and accounting to me are two separate things.
Sure.
And
I would agree with you.
There's a lot of people that don't. So
okay.
Most people think accounting, taxes, accounting, taxes, CPAs, that realm, bookkeeping, accounting, taxes. I think bookkeeping, admin, phones, operations, because bookkeeping is something that you do every single day.
You should do every single day.
You're collecting money and you're creating invoices and you're doing estimates. All of that is bookkeeping. And picking up the phone and calling your vendors and your customers, that is bookkeeping. That's what we do. So we don't do any heavy duty accounting. And I forgot why I was going there.
Oh, it's fractional CFO I asked about.
I do COO stuff, so Chief Operations.
Okay.
And I have a service that I started last year, and I call it the 10-point review. I will go to your business, stay for 3 to 5 days, interview the employees, check out the operations, see how everything is running. And it's based on these 10 points. First one is culture. And then I do a success plan on what I feel is working right and what I feel can be better. And so far I've done 4 of them and they have been spot on with, we lost a COO that wasn't really doing what she was supposed to be doing. We found fraud in the bookkeeper. We found a business owner that didn't really have a culture or a vision. So everybody's kind of running around not knowing what to do. So those 10-point reviews have been good for me to learn and see what's going on in the world. And it's also good for the owners that we've been helping.
Awesome. I love that. This is I'm really excited to share this with the world, and also to maybe introduce you to a few people who may or may not be a good fit. You know, it's always franchising. What's your typical, I know it's different for each franchise, but your franchise courtship time frame. So somebody said, hey, I'm interested, I want to engage in potentially getting one. What's the time frame between starting that process to when they're actually able to purchase one? And
so I have learned in all of these years that this standard 3-month thing seems to be the sweet spot. 3 months for us to make sure a customer is the right fit. We do a 3-month boot camp with anybody that we hire and add to the squad. So I think it's about 3 months from the time that you like click on franchise, give us a call, talk to me, to do the due diligence and come to Discovery Day in Las Vegas and see what the squad looks like and feels like. And I think you should be able to make a decision within that first 3 months. And then we get you ramped up, find you a location, and get your doors open quick so you can start building your squad.
okay, I like it. I'm just coming up with more questions as we're talking. So on average for your franchise, like how many clients, and I know that this probably ranges because of how much you charge each client and services, and all of those are going to range, but like roughly what's the break even point to where you're paying your bookkeeper, you're paying your admin, you're paying these people? At what point do you say, okay, I have enough clients that this is a self-sustaining business and now there's profit coming off of it?
Technically and legally, I'm not supposed to answer that question.
So, okay, well then don't answer.
But I told you that I opened my second location to find that out, right? So I took a certain amount of money and I said, I'm telling my franchisees that I can open an office and be profitable within 2 years with this. And we did. We succeeded at that. So we're paying the bookkeeper and the receptionist. We're not yet paying the owner's salary, but you could, probably take draws out of it. And our services are all the way from $95 a month just for use of address to $5,000 and $6,000 a month for clients that have us doing everything. So it really very much depends on what network you get into and who's getting referred to you. The good part is our website and our advertising funnels in people from all over the U.S. Mm-hmm. And so now with the franchises growing, we will have a place to send them.
Right.
If they're not in Vegas, we will send them to where there is a franchise.
Would the corporate take then a cut of that referral fee, or do you just say, it's fine, we got our franchise fees at the end, just covering there?
Every month. So the more business we send you, the bigger our royalties are, and it's the easier it is for us to support you.
Cool. Well, I love it. I think that more services need to be offered. There's definitely a lot of small businesses out there that, I'm going to rephrase that. There are a lot of small businesses, but there's a lot of self-employed people out there that need to know about this and need to be doing this. Their life would be much simpler if they just hired somebody to take care of it.
Yeah.
They'd get probably 5 years back of their life.
$360 a month. Imagine getting a bookkeeper and all the help and advice and your free QuickBooks for $360 a month.
Yeah, that's incredible. Is it still? What does that include? The registered address, or is that always just like an add-on?
$95. So it's yeah. So our minimum fee, if you want any kind of bookkeeping, is $360.
I like it. Yeah, I think it's a huge thing if people would just choose to do it, and a lot of it comes down to the education of understanding how and why that could serve them. So I think this podcast
I'm the education part.
Yeah, I love it, and I appreciate you coming on, Dida, and I'm excited for more people to hear this and reach out to you.
Thank you. Great questions. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. We'll catch you guys next time on the Fuel Your Legacy Show. Who doesn't love a good gift with a great story? The Animal Alliance merch is cute, meaningful, and supports spay and neuter programs to reduce pet overpopulation. From mugs to baby clothes, you're inviting your friends and family to be part of a compassionate mission. shop at theanimalalliance.org, brought to you by the Animal Alliance.
Thanks for joining us. If what you heard today resonates with you, please like, comment, and share on social media. Tag me, and if you do give me a shout out, I'll give you a shout out on the next episode. Thanks to all of those who've left a review. It helps spread the message of what it takes to build a legacy that lasts. And we'll catch you next time on Fuel Your Legacy.